Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new and slightly sunburnt episode of The Metal Meltdown. Today we are talking about Rumble of Thunder, a brand new studio album from The Who. And no, just so we're clear, I am not referring to the iconic English rock band of the same name, featuring Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend, responsible for such classic hits as Pinball Wizard, Love, Rain, or Me, and that fucking song from CSI Miami. I am actually referring to a Mongolian folk metal, heavy metal fusion crew named The who have kind of blown up in a relatively small amount of time. Like, they're still a new-ish, young-ish band, having only released a debut in 2019, but they've had a pretty big impact on heavy metal, specifically on heavy metal in mainstream media. Like, they've had multiple viral hits like You View View and Wolf Totem and a cover of Metallica's Sad But True, all of which collectively have amassed 200 million views on YouTube alone. They also contributed a cover of Metallica's Through the Never to a Black Album tribute record called The Metallica Blacklist, which, you know, kind of a big deal. I don't know about you, but I can't name any other Mongolian rock or metal bands that have been featured on a Metallica tribute record alongside the likes of Weezer and Miley fucking Cyrus. The Who is also currently on tour with Five Finger Death Punch and Megadeth, two multi-platinum American heavy metal bands, so yeah, safe to say that The Who is kind of a big fucking deal right now. And it's pretty easy to see why, considering The Who have such a distinct musical and visual style, one which blends traditional Mongolian music and culture and history with more straightforward hard rock and heavy metal tropes and formulas. Jaw harps, the torvshoe, the horse-head fiddle, traditional Mongolian war cries and throat singing combined with some rockin', hard rock, heavy metal rhythms and riffs and jams. Some people upon hearing all of this will be reminded of another Mongolian heavy metal folk metal fusion crew, Tengger Cavalry, and I can definitely fucking understand why. It's almost impossible not to compare the two on some level. But I feel as if The Who are ultimately a more interesting band because I think they push the Mongolian heavy metal fusion even further, to the point where I genuinely feel as if we're on the verge of a totally new subgenre. And it is worth noting, The Who on some level must feel the same because they have dubbed this Hunnu Rock. And while I still believe there is work to be done, while I still believe that there is more that can be done to flesh out this sound and to make it even more impactful and powerful, what Hunnu Rock does on Rumble of Thunder is more than enough to keep me invested, to make me excited, and to encourage all of you to check this out as soon as possible. Opening track This Is Mongol, for instance, is a catchy, groovy, hard rock folk metal banger that would feel just as welcome in a Mongolian pub as it would on the fucking battlefield. The Who just sound so determined. They are so confident not only in their sound, but in themselves, and as such, they waste no time bringing out those horsehead fiddles and some really cool Mongolian chants and gang vocals. There's also Triangle, which is a very upbeat and kind of adventurous track. The entire time I'm listening to this, I feel as if I'm roaming the countryside with my friends, perhaps on a quest, perhaps on some sort of great, epic, grand adventure. There are some dueling fiddles and guitar licks, but for the most part, this is a pretty simple and jovial track, and genuinely fun as a result. Though ultimately, it's the heavier tracks like Black Thunder and Tatar Warrior that really get the blood pumping and that really stick with me. Both of these tracks build on very minimalistic but epic foundations of metal riffery and atmosphere to create something genuinely pretty powerful. The tracks are slower and moodier. They spend more time building tension instead of just throwing a bunch of dynamic, over-the-top guitar riffs at you, but once they finally do exactly that, it is incredibly cathartic and satisfying. Like, the fiddle solos and licks and harmonies on both of these tracks are, without question, some of the most emotive and memorable on the entire record. Upright Destined Mongol and Shihihutu go down very similar trajectories, and as such are similarly very successful, very strong, very impactful, very good. I also find myself really liking Mother Earth, which is probably the closest the Who ever get to making a ballad on this record. I like how it starts off very tender and intimate, with these very warm and rustic string arrangements and acoustic guitar and very gravelly vocals, before then kind of blossoming into something a little bit more bombastic and dramatic, but not overwhelmingly so. I particularly love the chanted vocals near the very end. It's just a very sweet and endearing track, and I think it's likely to be a fan favorite as well. Now, I do wish that some of the more conventional rock and metal influences were a bit spicier, a bit bolder, a bit more prominent in the overall sound. Ultimately, they just kind of act as a vehicle for the Mongolian influences and lyrics and instruments. And I guess it's hard to be especially upset or disappointed when the Mongolian stuff is, like, objectively way more interesting to begin with. Like, it's almost like complaining about the crostinis that come with your fucking bruschetta in a restaurant. Like, who cares? No one cares about the crostini. People care about the bruschetta, how colorful it is, how vibrant it is, how delicious it is. Mwah, just like Mama used to make. But I don't know, man, the crostinis are still a part of a dish. Imagine how much better it would be if you used, like, this delicious, like, grilled garlic focaccia as opposed to just slicing a fucking French baguette and toasting it in a fucking frying pan. Even the sound mix seems to neglect the rock and metal influence, as guitars and percussion lack any real impact or weight. The crostini metaphor feels pretty fitting right now, because I feel like I could take a lot of these riffs and just snap them in half as if they were day-old crostinis. I would also say that the overall format of the record itself is very repetitive. Like, by the time you've gotten roughly halfway through the record, it should be easy for you to see where the rest of the record is going to go. While the style itself is very unique, there aren't a lot of twists and turns within that style itself. Put very simply, it appears even the bruschetta, as good as it is, could use a little bit of work. You know, maybe just a little extra seasoning or garnish. Something to help it pop all the more so. Still though, warts and all, I did thoroughly enjoy this record. Could it have been more pungent and punchy and dynamic and powerful? Sure. But what is here is pretty fucking good. And it is probably still one of the more unique records that you will hear in 2022. So I'm going to give this a very enthusiastic 3.5 out of 5. If you've been following The Who, or you find yourself missing the glory days of Tenger Cavalry, I don't see why you wouldn't also still enjoy this record. I'm curious to see how people who are now being exposed to this band for the first time through the Five Finger Death Punch tour are going to respond to this. I just, call me crazy, call me an asshole if you like, but I get the feeling that the Five Finger Death Punch audience, the people that typically make up that fan base, probably wouldn't be crazy into The Who, but considering they're all about to learn about The Who, I do look forward to hearing what they have to say. Overall, I think for a sophomore album, it's pretty fucking good, lots of room to expand, but ultimately it's hard to really complain with what we've been given with this pretty delicious platter of bruschetta, so dig the fuck in. 3.5 out of 5, I think it's pretty fucking good. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.